Hey guys, how good's this? I wish I had a guide like year 13 when I was beginning my journey of life after school almost 10 years ago now. So it's a real honor and a privilege to be here today sharing with you all. My name's Cam, and together with my wife Elise, we run an outdoor brand called Zorali. But we aren't the most hardcore outdoor enthusiasts, which is kind of ironic, right? You'd think the people behind the outdoor brand would be the ones that you see hanging off the side of the cliff without a harness. I mean, we love spending time in nature, but most of all, we love our comforts. We're the ones that you'll see in the campground with all the creature comforts. Things like big cozy doona, big memory foam pillows, comfy mattresses, the list goes on and on. And my favorite thing to do when camping is to wake up early and just watch the sunrise. But so often I wake up, it's freezing cold, and not one part of me wants to get out of the tent. And the snooze button gets in the way of my plans an extra 9 minutes at a time simply because I love being comfortable. And it makes me wonder how many plans and dreams our comfort zones have derailed or maybe even destroyed. Because it's always fun and exciting to make plans. But when it comes time to actually get out of the tent and into the adventure, suddenly we're met with resistance. It's like that with camping, and it's like that with life. We all love the idea of living a great adventure, but not many of us are able to actually find the courage to get out of our metaphorical tents and step into the adventure. And I believe the reason why so many of us hit that snooze button on our ambitions is because we want the exact steps from A to B. We want a map with all the steps charted out for us of how we should live each day. So we listen to talks like this, or we read lists with headlines like your 5 steps to success. And you know, I'm all for finding inspiration and learning from others who have gone before us. But I think we're missing the most important component: a compass, a deep sense of what true north looks like for you and the direction that you should be moving. Because without a compass, maps or other people's ideas or suggestions aren't as effective. But a map with a compass in your hand, that's your superpower. Think of all the great expeditions that have ever been undertaken in human history, like the age of exploration or even the fact that we know that the earth is round. All of those events wouldn't have taken place without a compass, right? And that's what I'm here to tell you today, that the compass is the key. So before I tell you about my story and how I came to find my own compass and path, I want everyone watching this right now to just point to where you think true north is on 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. There's hands everywhere going all around Australia right now, and a whole bunch of people looking at you guys thinking, what the heck are you doing? And you know, maybe you already know where true north is, or maybe you're like me and you got one of these things on your phone, the compass, and look at that, true north, right down past you guys. You know, maybe you already know where north is, but I wonder if you know what true north looks like for you on the inside. Where's true north? And I remember being in your position not too long ago with my whole life ahead of me, dreaming that maybe there was this life of adventure out there for me. But I couldn't see it. Things just looked blurry. And, you know, I guess my life and your life is kind of like one of these. It's kind of like the Polaroid, right? Things look a little bit milky and blurry for a while. And it takes a little while to develop before you can see things clearly. Look at that. There's nothing there. And I think one of the reasons why I had no vision for my life was because I was stuck in a tent of fear. I was stuck in a tent of insecurity, worrying about what others thought about me. I was stuck in a tent of thinking small and playing it safe. But I had this moment almost 10 years ago now, just after I'd finished school, where I went on this solo surf trip down the coast of Victoria where I live. And, in between sets, I was just sitting on my surfboard out in the ocean, and I felt this hope-filled voice within calling out to me, encouraging me that there was this life of adventure out there for me. If I was brave enough to follow those unique fascinations and passions that were on my heart, the ideas that filled me with joy, which for me was this dream of mine to start a surf brand that would inspire people to live passionately. And there was just one problem. I had to get out of that tent. I had to get out of that tent of fear. I had to get out of that tent of thinking small. The tent that would say things like, you're too young, you have no money, and frankly, you have no idea what you're doing. I had to get out of the tent of insecurity. I had to risk what others thought of me, which wasn't easy because everyone thought I was crazy. This 18-year-old kid from the outskirts of Melbourne, out in the sticks, 2 hours from the nearest surf beach, wanting to start a surf brand. It doesn't really make much sense, does it? But I've found that your unique fascinations and passions have a wisdom that reason doesn't have. And when you're courageous enough to follow its call into the obscurity of the unknown, the most remarkable opportunities have a way of finding yourself along your path. So that's just what I did. I mustered up 20 seconds of courage, and I took the first step towards my dreams, which was as simple as asking my parents if I could make just one surfboard in our backyard. And without knowing where it would lead, they said yes. And I remember just holding that first surfboard under my arm and just dreaming that it would be the beginning of something big. And it was later in that year that I went on this trip to Kenya. And I went there to be a blessing, but I found that my own life was transformed through these beautiful kids of the Huruma Children's Home and their hope-filled stories. And it was on this trip where my dreams for my business really began to expand. I was inspired to build a platform that would be used for good. Not only inspiring people to chase after a life of passion, but also giving back through our business profits. And I began to realize that this dream of mine wasn't about providing me with this fun life. It was ultimately about serving others and bringing light to the world. And when I arrived home from that trip in early 2013, I was really inspired to get the wheels moving on my business. And after months of working on my ideas during my first couple years of university, in October of 2013, I took one big leap of faith and launched monstersurf.com to the world with a range of my surfboards and clothing for sale. And that was it. We became this overnight success, millions of dollars in revenue, customers all over the world, just like that. Thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it. I'm kidding. It was nothing like that. It was hard. It was like walking in a thick mud, surrounded by fog. And I faced so many moments of resistance where I seriously contemplated just hitting that snooze button on my dreams and just giving up. But after extreme amounts of struggle and sacrifice, an accumulation of small and big leaps of faith, my brand, Monster Surf, slowly started gaining traction. Like the moment we landed our first international customer and I was just dancing in our kitchen. Or the moment when Google partnered with us on an advertising campaign. Or the moment when I was able to head back to Kenya with some funds from our first year of business and help build a fish farm for the Huruma Children's Home. And I began to realize how the most incredible doors and opportunities would open when I actively pursued the ideas and dreams that came from a place of love and possibility and not fear. And as I developed this understanding, it truly became my compass. I came to discover that any idea, dream, or decision that was driven by this sense of possibility was my true north. And I began to see that every great thing in my life or business had come to pass by following this compass. And for me, I like to recognize this still small, hope-filled voice I feel within as God's voice. For you, you might see it as a conscious, the universe, your gut, or some intuitive knowing that we all feel. Whatever you call it, begin to recognize the inner voice that guides you towards the greatest version of you, because that's your true north. And at first, I found it really hard to trust this voice as my compass, because it meant I had to let go of controlling all the outcomes. And I'm definitely a control freak. But as I learned to trust that something greater would guide me through all the fog, through all the details that I couldn't see yet, I realized that one thing became certain, that when you simply trust that next hope-filled step and move forward, things become more clear. And just like that Polaroid picture, Monster Surf and all my dreams for it slowly but surely started to take shape. And it went from being this backyard hobby, hustling to make ends meet, as I never really took a wage from it, to becoming a thriving surf brand that demanded my full attention. And I dropped out of university as we began to expand internationally to the point where we had customers from over 45 countries around the world. It was truly remarkable. And we're doing a whole heap of cool things like going on surf trips, making surf films, or providing developing communities around the world with clean water through our foundation, or taking our own customers on overseas trips to explore and do good with us, or setting up our own retail stores in Melbourne, or being featured on the front of business magazines, or speaking to thousands of people across Australia and beyond. But it didn't come easy. And the point is, it took time to develop. And there were so many moments where things were blurry or I'd just get knocked down. And in those moments, I had to find true north to keep me on track. And one of those moments was in late 2016, right when we were in the peak of our success. I went to work just like any other day. And as I got there was this letter on my desk from California. And what I read scared me because it changed our world forever. We had this global brand who really didn't like us using the name Monster Surf. And I won't mention who they are, but they were this monster company. I think they might sell energy drinks or something like that. And they were chasing us legally. It was like this David versus Goliath battle, except Goliath had my head, not the other way around. And it was one of the toughest times in my life. And it was the first time that I experienced real anxiety, the kind where it feels like your heart is just gonna beat out of your chest. We're gonna be left in 6 figures worth of debt from all the legal fees and from just everything going downhill. And during that season, all the stress just really drained myself so much that I actually ended up in hospital with some health complications that developed into a 2-year battle with adrenal fatigue. It took me right from the mountaintop right down into the valley. And it was like I was just stuck in this tent of fear. And this tent would throw lies at me, things like, you're not gonna make it through this. You're gonna be broke and in massive debt. You're not gonna make it to the other side of this challenge. And I'd love to tell you that everything just miraculously turned around. I found my energy again. I got back on top. The business bounced back. But that's not how the story went. The whole thing became way too expensive to fight, and we were giving a short deadline to close down the business. My health got worse and worse to the point where I couldn't even walk around the block without feeling like I needed to go to bed for a week. I was stuck in this tent of despair, of just hopelessness. And I wanted to blame everyone else for my problems. And I wonder if you've ever had something go wrong in your life and you've just wanted to sit around and point the finger at everyone else. And, that was me. I've been there. I feel ya. But I learned that at some point, you have to decide if you're going to stay in that tent of your problems or if you're going to get up and find true north. You've got to decide which way you're going to live. Because life doesn't always work out the way that we plan, but it's in those times that you can choose to believe that it's all part of a greater plan. And that's just what I did. I finally stopped looking at what was all the problems, all the chaos, everything that was going wrong. And I started looking at what could be. I stopped listening to that voice of fear. And I decided to listen to the voice that came from a place of love and possibility, whispering within and deeply urging me to get out of this tent. And at this time, I decided to trust that voice. And I believe that just like a compass, it would guide me through to a better story. So I got out of the tent. And as I began moving, I found that my path collided with the most beautiful girl I'd ever put my eyes upon to that point, Elise. And we met in late 2017 when I was in the midst of all that chaos. And long story short, we fell in love and we got engaged just a few months later. But we had this deep belief that maybe we'd been brought together for something greater than us. And we thought that maybe this legal challenge I was facing could have been like our secret key, an opportunity to take all that we had learned on our respective paths and unlock our future by creating something new. Combining our creative talents to inspire other people to do what we loved most, to get outside and spend time in nature. So we began sketching all these drawings of the outdoor gear and apparel we wanted to create, and we dreamed that this new brand could become a leading voice for the benefits of time spent in nature. And at the time, Elise was in her dream role designing for a global surf brand. We'd just gotten engaged, we're planning the wedding, it was coming up fast. So it's safe to say we had enough to think about before even considering starting a new business together. And it was like we're at the point in every good story where there's a fork in the road with two paths set before you. It's like you got the conventional path, a safe, well-lit path, relatively smooth trail, lots of people moving in that same direction, and an unconventional path filled with wild, unknown terrain and a blanket of fog clouding your vision beyond the first few steps. And I think that's the story of all of us. You see, most of us, we have two lives. There's the life that we live and the life that we imagine. And what stands between the two is the voice of fear. It's fear of failure. It's fear of rejection. It's fear of what could go wrong by following your heart. The list goes on and on. And I remember asking Elise if she was sure she wanted to leave the comfort of her job, which she loved, for the unknown path of where we felt called towards. And Elise just looked at me and said, "Cam, we weren't created to be comfy." And those were 6 of the most powerful words that I'd ever heard, because they gave us the courage to step out of that tent and launch into the dream. So that's just what we did. Elise summed up 20 seconds of courage to resign from what was, at the time, her dream job. We got out of that tent. We decided not to hit that snooze button on our ambitions. And even though we had no savings or no roadmap of the path ahead, what we did have was a compass. So we pointed towards north, the direction we wanted to go. We just pointed towards that place and we said, all right, we're going to go there. And we began moving towards that place. And just like how any character in any great story needs a guide, Elise was mine. She provided me with the inspiration I needed to get out of the tent and into the adventure that was ahead of us. Because I think we all naturally opt for the comfort and stability of the tent, just like me on my camp trips. And without a guide who's willing to help you move forward, you won't enter into something new. So I wonder, who's your guide? Who's the friend or mentor that you can call upon when times are tough? Who's the person who can encourage you to get out of the tent and help you find true north? You know, the team here at year 13 are the kind of people I wish I had as a guide when I started out. So reach out to them, say hi, get to know them. They'll provide you with the resources and the wisdom needed to find the courage you need to chase after what you really want. And you know, for Elise and I, our journey was born out of that 20 seconds of insane courage Elise took when she put in her notice. And there was a quote that really inspired us during this time by Elizabeth Gilbert that refers to creative living as living a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear. And this spoke to everything we wanted our brand to stand for and the lifestyle that we wish people walk into, which is why we merged two ancient words to create the word Zorali, meaning fearless and full of life. And we found that our lack of resources, things like no savings, no real plan of how it was all going to come together, gave us the ability to really think differently and creative. I mean, we had no other choice. And we began to wonder if what could be possible if it wasn't just Elise and I invested into this vision, but if we had the backing of the community that I had built through Monster Surf behind us, all invested into this new vision together. If we could go against the way brands have traditionally been built and write a new story through an equity crowdfund model. Because if there's one thing that we've learned, it's that sometimes you have to be prepared to go against the way things have always been done. So that's just what we did by launching this crazy out there video to our followers in June of 2019. And after launching this campaign, we received a tsunami of support from all across Australia and beyond. And we became the fastest company in Australia to reach our minimum target in an equity crowdfund campaign. Just the 5th company in Australia to hit our max target of $300,000. But what we loved most was the community that we were able to build through this campaign, with over 550 people investing into our brand, people with little, people with much, all taking a leap of faith with us to help build this vision together. A brand that we believe will one day become a leading and sustainable resource for the outdoor lifestyle, inspiring generations of people to get outside and discover the pathway to a happy and healthy life. So we went from stepping out into that cloud of fog to meeting all these like-minded people along the path, raising the funds that we needed to launch Zorali. And now after a year and a half of hard work and good opportunities realized, Zorali has some real momentum behind it, and it's already surpassed Monster Surf's 6 years worth of revenue in just a year and a half. Crazy. And I could stand here all day and tell you all the plans that we have for Zorali and all the things that we do through the brand, like how we've already planted over 170,000 trees just from the sale of our products, where we plant 10 for each item purchased in areas of severe deforestation, or how we're launching campouts and experiences that you can come along to, or how we have dreams to have our own nature retreats in future where people can find rest and healing in the wonder and beauty of nature. But what I've really come here to tell you about is not about us. It's about you and your next courageous move. And I just want to encourage you all, with these few minutes I have left with you, to just make a decision to get out of the tent and find true north, whatever that looks like for you. To get out of the tent of thinking small, to get out of the tent of fear, to get out of the tent of worry, to get out of the tent of comparison. Trust me, I find myself in that tent a lot, and it is not a fun tent to be in. To just make this daily decision to not hit that snooze button on your ambitions, to reject those voices of fear and move towards the thing that really lights you up, to move towards true north, whatever that looks like for you. Because I believe we were all created uniquely. And within that uniqueness comes wild, uncharted territory that hasn't been walked before and cannot be charted out on a map. Which is why it's so important to understand what true north looks like for you and to let it guide you like a compass. Because the compass is the key. That's what will determine where you'll go and who you'll become in your life. So which direction is north? What about in here? Remember, every great thing in your life will come to pass by following the ideas, dreams, and decisions that come from a place of love and possibility. That's your true north. That's your compass. You know, you can call it God, a conscience, the universe, your gut, whatever it is for you, become familiar with that inner voice because it will guide you towards the adventure that you were made to live. It will plot the path for you. It will nudge you. It will whisper hope-filled words of encouragement along the way. So as I come to a close today, I want you to reflect on what's really guiding you. Because if there's one thing I know, it's that fear will do its best to knock you off course. Almost like there's a darkness in this world that doesn't want us moving towards that next best version of us. It wants us to get stuck in our tents and give up hope. And hey, maybe that's where you are today. You might feel a little bit stuck or a little bit disorientated, just like I did when I was in your position. Or things might look super blurry, kind of like that Polaroid, right? Before it's taken time to develop. Or maybe you're at that fork in the road like Elise and I was, with two paths set before you. And maybe you've come to believe for whatever reason that you need to play it safe, that you're not brave enough or smart enough to do what you really want. So you've settled back into the safety and comfort of the tent. You know, wherever you are, I just want you to take stock of what's guiding you. Are you being driven by fear or something much deeper? That sense of wonder and possibility. Because if there's one thing that I want you to know, it's that there is a life of adventure out there for you. And if you're going to discover it, you're going to have to muster up that 20 seconds of courage and just get out of your tent. And that's my problem, remember. I love being comfortable. And I want to blame you if you opt for comfort too. I mean, who wouldn't? It's comfortable. But what I'm learning is this. Comfortable people don't live out the adventure that they were made to live. Brave people, the ones who are courageous enough to step out of the tent and move towards true north, do. So thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned for more awesome content coming up. Cheers, guys.